When you think of the Mafia, what comes to mind? Gangrene? Chicago? The Godfather? Goodfellas? How about something in between? That's right, New York. But don't confuse this story with the first one. If you're thinking the Bronx Bull, nope, it's different. What happens when the Capo Regime, a soldier in the Italian-American Mafia family, disappears after betraying his own family, bringing down other crime families along with him? Well, you get an all-star cast from the world of mob movies. That's right, stars Ray Liotta, Joe Mantegna, Chaz Palminteri, and Tony Darrow. And we've got a couple more surprises for you. But let's rewind a bit. Back to 1979, the year of this film. Michael Corleone was still trying to clean up his family business in The Godfather Part 2. Meanwhile, in New York, a very different mafia story was unfolding. In Queens, Frank Tibelli, a capo regime for the Lucchese crime family, was busted out of prison by his underboss Sonny Bono. After hearing rumors that Frank planned to flip on the family once he was released, they took matters into their own hands, kidnapping him from inside his own home. They brought him to an abandoned warehouse, where they tortured him until he agreed to renounce his cooperation with the feds. Now, if you've watched many of our videos before, you know that no matter how bad things seem, no matter how badly you may be mistreated, there's always hope for a better outcome. Yet somehow, in this case, it seemed impossible. Frank was beaten so severely he suffered a heart attack right there on the table. His brother Dominic, aka Sonny Bono, who brought him here, actually cared about him. He wanted Frank to renounce his plan to cooperate with the FBI, because Frank had implicated not only himself, but also Dominic during the trial. Once Frank became unresponsive, Dominic stopped the beating. He then called for the others to leave, except for Sal, one of Frank's friends, who stayed behind to make sure Frank didn't die. As the others were leaving, Dominic told them to kill Frank if he was still alive. But when Dominic exited the room, Sal shot him in the head. He tried to resuscitate Frank by slapping him and screaming at him to get up, but Frank was dead. With Frank dead, Sal fled the scene. Now, despite being wanted by both the police and the Mafia, he managed to disappear for the next few years. As time went on, rumors spread about what really happened that night. Some said Frank survived the beating, others claimed that Sonny and the boys killed him. No one knew for sure. Then one day, Sal walked into a bar and asked for a drink. An off-duty cop sitting nearby overheard Sal talking about killing someone and slipped away while no one was looking. When Sal left the bar, the officer reported what he'd heard to his captain. They tracked Sal down and arrested him, bringing him to trial for murder. The prosecution's case against Sal was rock solid. Frank's widow, Phyllis, identified Sal as the man who came to dinner the night her husband disappeared. She also testified that she found a bullet in Frank's clothes, which ballistics later confirmed matched the murder weapon. Unfortunately for Sol, the cops found another witness, a woman who saw him arguing with Frank earlier in the evening. But Sol's lawyer wasn't done yet. He cross-examined each witness, pointing out the lack of physical evidence tying Sal directly to the murder. Sure, Frank was dead, but could they prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Sal killed him? While the jury deliberated, Sal decided to take the stand in his own defense. He denied killing Frank, claiming that he was at the warehouse only to collect money from Frank as part of a gambling debt. But Sal forgot one crucial detail. During his testimony, he admitted to planting the murder weapon in Frank's house. This slip of memory didn't go unnoticed. The prosecutor jumped on it, pointing out that Sal would hardly have risked getting caught if he hadn't committed the crime. Sal's lawyer tried to recover, claiming that Sal had put the gun there as part of an insurance scam, but the jury wasn't buying it. They found Sal guilty of murder in the second degree. At the same time, the judge took the unusual step of declaring Sal a Mafia soldier, citing evidence that he had killed 2 people in Las Vegas and was wanted for questioning in connection with another death in Florida. Sal was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. The judge also ruled that since the murder happened in the course of Sal's criminal activity, he wasn't eligible for parole. He appealed, but the verdict stood. Years passed. Sal's former boss, Sonny Bonanno, became the acting boss of the Lucchese crime family and retired from the Mafia to live as a witness in the government's witness protection program. Eventually, Sal was transferred to a federal prison where he served the rest of his sentence. Here's where the story takes a turn. In 1990, Sal was granted asylum in Italy, where he still lives today. So why did an admitted mafia killer get asylum in Italy? Well, before Sal's arrest, he'd been subpoenaed to testify against his fellow mobsters in a racketeering trial. But when he disappeared, the trial fell apart. Then he was arrested. Suddenly, the federal government didn't want Sal to testify anymore. Why? Because they feared retaliation from the mafia against Sal's family. So Sal made a deal with the Italians.
Ow.
They'd grant him asylum and protect his family if he testified against the mafia in exchange. And Sal kept his word. He testified in several high-profile mafia trials. Unfortunately, none of them resulted in any convictions. At least Sal had honor. Seems the only people he was willing to cooperate with were the ones who gave him asylum. Not exactly surprising, right? But now let's get back to the film. Like most films based on true stories, Mafia was based on the real-life events involving Frank Tibbles and Salvatore. But unlike most films, it deviates quite significantly from the actual events. For example, in the movie, the character of Charlie, played by Ray Liotta, testifies against his fellow mobsters. But in real life, Sal never testified against his fellow mobsters. Another difference is that Charlie's girlfriend, played by Jennifer Jason Leigh, doesn't exist. The movie was filmed in 1989 and 1990, but it was set in the late 1970s. The filmmakers wanted to capture the look and feel of the era, so they used vintage cars and clothing from that period. As for the violence, well, that was over the top. Even by Hollywood standards, the film is rated R and contains graphic violence, including a scene where Sal cuts off a man's fingers. However, the film also has some comedic moments, thanks to characters like Paulie, played by Tony Darrow, who steals every scene he's in. Paulie is a small-time hoodlum who works for Sal, often getting himself into trouble by saying the wrong things at the wrong times. He's loud, obnoxious, and violent, but he's also pathetic and cowardly. There's a great scene where Paulie sneaks into a bar and gets drunk, then stumbles outside and falls down a flight of stairs. You can't help but feel sorry for him. Another memorable character is Sonny Bono, played by Joe Mantegna. Unlike his real-life counterpart, Sonny in the movie is cold, calculating, and ruthless. He's the one who orders the hit on Charlie after he testifies against his fellow mobsters. In fact, Sonny is the embodiment of the Mafia's code of silence. When Charlie's girlfriend is kidnapped, Sonny tells him, "You understand the rules. We don't talk about things like this in public." And when Charlie insists that he wants her back, Sonny replies, "You can't win. The only way you can win is to walk away." Of course, Charlie doesn't walk away. Instead, he goes to the police. But as the saying goes, you snooze, you lose. And that's exactly what happens to Charlie. At the end of the movie, he's found dead in his apartment, having taken the same trip to the afterlife as Frank Teobaldo. But who really killed Charlie? Was it Sonny or someone else? Well, that's up for debate. One thing's for sure, though. Mafia is a must-watch for anyone who loves mob movies. It's got everything you could want, including great performances from the entire cast. Especially Joe Mantegna, who steals the show as Sonny. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out more from our channel, and thanks for watching.